Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Bolling, along with Eboni K. Williams and Kat Timpf, and we are the Fox News specialists. President Trump comes out swinging in Paris, defending his son Donald Trump Jr. over his meeting with Russian lawyer Natalia Veselnitskaya. Listen.
I think from a practical standpoint, most people would have taken that meeting. It's called opposition research, or even research into your opponent. I've had many people, I have only been in politics for 2 years, but I've had many people call up, oh, gee, we have information on this factor or this person or, frankly, Hillary. That's very standard in politics. Politics is not the nicest business in the world, but it's very standard.
The president also signing off over a new report from the Hill newspaper. It details how the Obama-era Department of Justice let Natalia Veselnitskaya into the country. Listen to this.
The lawyer that went to the meeting, I see that she was in the halls of Congress also. Somebody said that her visa or her passport to come into the country was approved by Attorney General Lynch. Now, maybe that's wrong. I just heard that a little while ago, but it's a little surprised to hear that. So she was here because of Lynch.
Yeah, and further, the Hill reports that Veselnitskaya had been turned down for a U.S. visa in 2015, but she was granted special immigration parole by AG Loretta Lynch so she could help defend a Russian client in a federal court case in New York. So the plot thickens. Now, I mean, that's a little bit of a new revelation. I think Chuck Grassley yesterday alluded to that. Like, how did she get in when she was already turned down for a visa? And if she got in via Obama administration, isn't this on Obama, not Trump?
Well, first of all, justice by any means necessary, Eric. Everybody's got to get their lawyer in somehow, some way, right? But no, I do think that before we start connecting the dots and making big narratives, all of the steps should be traced back to their root. I think that's fair. And if indeed it comes back to an Obama administration entrance, then we have to look at that for what it is.
Kat, smell a little fishy?
I don't know. We're going to wait and see if somebody messed up there or not. But I don't think it removes blame for Donald Trump Jr. made his own decisions. He's actually the same age as Macron. He's not a kid, which was funny. Seeing President Trump call him a kid, it was kind of funny. You can admit that's funny? A little funny.
Okay.
A little funny.
Well, no, but you know what? Here's the whole thing. Like, so Veselnitskaya decides to come over here and pitch and peddle and lobby for her issue, which is adoption, the Russian-U.S. adoption issues. She gets over here and then dupes, and it looks like she gets in through the Obama administration with this visa.
Client, right?
Yeah,
maybe
told everyone she had a client. She ends up duping Donald Trump Jr. into a meeting, pitching her, lobbying her idea, and then further goes to Congress and starts. We have reports that she was all over Congress over the next 10 days pitching her adoption idea. So I'm trying to figure out how Trump is on the hook.
I think she's saying that.
A whole lot of Russia and Obama administration going back and forth.
Sure, but separate and apart. First of all, Donald Trump Jr. would have had to have known that, right, to have fuller context. And maybe if he didn't, absent that, then there's just a strict analysis, Eric, around Donald Trump Jr.'s decision to meet with her.
Okay, no question. No doubt. We'll get into it. Let's meet today's specialist. She's a political analyst, a nationally syndicated radio host, and a Fox News contributor, but she specializes in playing classical piano. Leslie Marshall is here, and he's a Republican strategist. In 2008, he served as the state finance leader in California for Rudy Giuliani's presidential bid. He is the chairman for the pro-Donald Trump Great America PAC, and he specializes in indoor cycling. Eric Beach is here. I'll start with you, Leslie. Your thoughts on this. How are we tying this to... So you can ask the question, did Donald Trump Jr. vet this meeting well enough or not? But the reason why this Russian lawyer was even in town was because of Loretta Lynch under Obama let her in.
Well, Loretta Lynch, to Ebony's point, let her in because there was a client that she was the attorney for that needed representation. They allowed her to stay longer because they wanted to wait for the motion to come back from the judge instead of her going back to Russia, then letting her in again. Then when she was here, she definitely met with different people regarding opening up adoption with Russia again. As the parent, as you guys all know, I have 2 kids, one's adopted. I'm totally in favor of anything that we can do to help people throughout the world adopt children that need homes. But she was not up front, not only with the Department of Justice, she went beyond when she was here. She also allegedly was not up front with Donald Trump Jr. To Kat's point, though, when he saw who she was, where she came from, and what she wanted to meet about, that should have been the stop sign right there, because she is from Russia. It does matter. You get dirt on your opponent, no question. But who you get it from and who you meet with certainly matters.
What do you say, Beach?
I think Loretta Lynch and, the Obama Justice Department is a gift that keeps on giving, in my opinion. They let her in. There seemed to be no problem with her. And, at the end of the day, President Trump is right. I mean, as a political practitioner, you want to have as much opposition research as you possibly can. I ran one of the largest super PACs along with Ed Rollins in the country for President Trump. And we had people coming to us all the time talking to us about how to win the election. At the end of the day, Donald Trump was trying to win an election. And furthermore, I'm not convinced that there is anything, that shapes this narrative of collusion. I mean, we've been hearing this. So if this is all they have to point to an evidence of collusion, then good luck.
Can I ask you this follow-up question about that? When you're raising money, and obviously, that's a very big deal, what type of questions or inquiry do you conduct when you're, kind of vetting, as he's talking about the source of the information or the money?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I don't look at political giving as something as a status quo or something as a give back. I look at it as a form of patriotism because people have an opportunity to support a candidate, whether he or she runs on something. What Donald Trump did was he ran against the status quo. And we see that with all of the issues. He didn't win because of celebrity. He won because he ran against a broken and failed system. We're seeing that a little bit in the healthcare debate. I believe that's why most of the people give to a political campaign because they see.
So you don't really ask? Do you ask certain questions?
No, we ask
like
all
where
the
they're
time.
from and all that stuff?
Yeah, of course.
Right. So that's what I was asking.
It's all regulated. Yeah. I mean, the good news is it's all regulated, right? And so at the end of the day, this wasn't about political giving. This was about, was there something of evidence that Hillary Clinton did during the campaign or during her tenure as Secretary of State that might have been out of bounds?
Allow me, Leslie, to ask you this, and we'll bring it around the table this way. But, this is like the 9th or 10th bombshell revelation that the left and the left-wing media and also Democrats on the Hill are saying that they discovered Russian hacking the election. Russians changed the votes. Comey got fired. Comey's memo. Trump demanded Comey loyalty. Trump revealed classified info on the Russian to the Russian foreign minister in the Oval Office. It goes on and on and on, and these things go up like a bottle of rocket, but they fizzle out once they get there.
Well, I wouldn't say everything fizzles out.
Well,
I mean, there was a memo. I mean, Comey was fired. He was
fizzle.
uncomfortable with some of the things the president was saying, how he was saying what he was asking him to do. However, I will agree with you every time, if we say Russian salad dressing, the Democrats, my ilk don't need to get crazy. But we do have an investigation, and we need to let that play out. And then perhaps we will see collusion, obstruction of justice, articles of impeachment recommended.
No,
and I think that, and I think that's what we need to do, Eric. Because
B block. Well,
we have articles of impeachment recommended today, but we also had loser Senator Tim Kaine earlier yesterday, and kind of doubling down a little bit today, suggesting treason. Now, treason's a capital offense. You can be punished. It's punishable by death.
It also requires war, right? It requires that we are actively at war with Russia, which we're not. So I don't know why Tim Kaine is really on that talking point. But as Leslie's saying, right, we do have an investigation. And I know many people, Eric, feel that the investigation should go away. But I would submit this to you. I would submit to you that it is best for the Trump administration to let the investigation play out. That is the only way for many people in this country, Eric, who are not satisfied with some of the answers coming out of the White House right now, that cloud will be removed.
All right, let me throw this to you, Kat. French President Macron today said, and these are his words, while we may have a lot of discrepancies with Russia, it is in France's best interest to have a good relationship with them. It sounds very familiar.
I completely agree with that also. I love hearing that we are working on having a better relationship with Russia because it doesn't do the people here any good to not have one. And I like to see President Trump taking that approach. That's certainly something that I see as separate. I really hate the idea that just because there is this investigation that any attempts at diplomacy have to be slammed or looked at with suspicion. That doesn't do any of us any good because ultimately he is the president. We want him to do the things that are best for the country.
And Eric, does it do the country any good when every time Donald Trump or one of his family members or cabinet members mentions Russia, there's another investigation?
And also the Democrats have been undercutting our diplomacy, right? I mean, at the end of the day, what do they want? Do they want us to go to war with Russia over leaked emails from John Podesta and Debbie Wasserman Schultz? And going back to one point, Macron and President Trump, they have a lot of commonalities. They both were outsiders. And when we talk about, really the culture of confidence, what we talk about is this war against ISIS, which is the #1 thing that Donald Trump ran on, which was protecting American interests. And I hate to say that, but Russia is part of that war against ISIS. It's our biggest threat.
I don't disagree with that, but I think a lot of people have questions, though, Eric, around Russia's agenda versus the American agenda and how long they can coexist in harmony. At some point, are they going to be in direct conflict?
And I think you're talking about going to war with Russia over those emails is as crazy as Democrats saying treason.
Well, yeah, but who's suggesting? No one's actually suggesting going to war. And by the way, let's be honest, Russia has been trying to hack and trying to influence our elections for 50, 70 years since the Cold War. But we've been doing the same to them.
Of course.
This is common practice. So when someone comes and
It
says...
doesn't mean we shouldn't protect ourselves.
Oh, of course we should. In fact, I've never suggested that we shouldn't. I'm simply saying that if Donald Trump says, I want to meet or I want to talk, I want to shake the foreign minister's hand in the Oval Office, we shouldn't be pulling, 4 levels of investigations as to what they talked about.
I don't think...
Sorry.
No, Leslie, go ahead.
But to your point earlier, both of you, with the relationship that we have with world leaders, certainly you want to keep good relationships with most, not all world leaders. Obviously, North Korea would not be on my list. But with regard to Russia, you have to remember we have to be very careful with them. Russian hacking aside, look at their position with the Iranians, look at their position with the Chinese, and look at their position with Syria, with Assad. That's concerning. We're not necessarily batting for the same team and have the same agenda and the same goals even with regard to those.
And I think Leslie's expressing, Eric, where some people feel less than comfortable around President Trump, not because he's having the meeting, not because he's exercising diplomacy, as Kat's talking about, but because I don't think they, if I'm just being straight up, I don't think they trust that President Trump has a healthy suspicion of Vladimir Putin and Russian agenda. That's what I'm hearing on the streets.
Probably the most important thing that for the Russian economy is the price of oil. Everything Trump has done has driven the price of oil and gas down, and that hurts Russia. So if he was really this in collusion or colluded with President Putin, you don't think he would be doing that. I wouldn't expect him to be doing that. He is literally dismantling the Russian economy himself.
He's done certain things that are not what Russia would have wanted him to do, but I'm not going to play armchair FBI investigator. I'm going to wait for the actual FBI investigators to do their job, and then we'll see what happens.
And come back with some evidence, right?
Right, of course.
But we're 6 months in, and we're in 7 investigations in, and there's not been, again,
That's
the
not
time,
that
the
long
lines.
for the feds, Eric. They're a little slow moving.
How long did it take for Watergate? Was
Watergate, there was a crime immediately. Immediately,
But
the
still,
crime was committed. We knew it.
impeachment didn't happen the next day, Eric. There's a process.
There was admissions of criminality in Watergate.
Right.
This is completely different. This is a witch hunt.
And this is not a witch hunt, and this involves a lot more people.
Definition
This
of a
involves
witch
a
hunt.
lot more people.
This is throwing legal dartboards, the darts at a dartboard, and looking for trying to hit a target.
Donald Trump said it best when he said, do you really think that Vladimir Putin wanted me to win this election? I mean, look at all of the steps that he's taken. You have to look at the man's actions, not the words. And I don't agree that he's not suspicious of Putin or even Russia.
I think that's a question.
Yeah, but I do think at the end of the day, what he looks at is for common ground. And I think he's trying to get that in the war against ISIS.
All right, let's leave it right there. Coming up, Democrats hitting a pathetic new low. Eboni mentioned it a minute ago. One congressman has now officially filed an article of impeachment against President Trump. Are you kidding me? Don't go away.
So say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo, say Geronimo.
Sometimes desperation can be so thick you can taste it. Case in point, Democratic Congressman Brad Sherman has now officially introduced an article of impeachment. Yes, article of impeachment against President Trump. It accuses the president of obstructing justice and interfering with the probe into Russia's 2016 election meddling. The congressman explained why he was doing this on Tucker Carlson's show last night.
The hope is that it triggers an investigation, an intervention in the White House. And this is a faint hope. That his staff is finally able to say, now it's real articles. And for that and for so many other reasons, Mr. President, you've got to stop announcing reversals in foreign policy at 4 in the morning in 140 characters. You've got to stop making foreign policy in complete ignorance of the facts.
Now, as Tucker pointed out afterward, that sounds a lot like he wants to impeach the president so that he'll stop tweeting. Leslie, I'm going to go to you on this because, you know, impeachment's serious. I mean, like, we're kind of laughing about it in the way it's done here, but it's a serious thing. And we've seen, most of us remember the Clinton impeachment trial and things of this nature. We know what that looks like, the heaviness of it. How does it sit with you that this congressman is admitting that he's doing this not really to actively impeach the sitting president, but really as some type of intervention mechanism? And he even admits that it's a faint attempt, no less.
Well, I live in L.A.
And this is not your
County,
congressman.
And I was going to say, not my
I asked you
congressman.
during the break, yeah.
I'm with Adam Schiff. I mean, even Maxine Waters is not on board, signing up for this. We only have two people, Al Green in Texas and then Ben Sherman in California. Part of the problem here is, one, we don't really have, if you just Google what the articles of impeachment needed for articles of impeachment to put forth.
High crimes and misdemeanors.
Put forth are. One. Two, as we talked about in segment A, the tantalizing introduction appetizer to B, that you got to let this play out. You have to have the investigation go forth. It doesn't help the party. It doesn't help the people, and it certainly doesn't help the process. Adam Schiff said before.
Does it hurt the party?
I think it does, because we have certainly some rifts and fragmentation within the party as it is. Look, there are a lot of people out there who want Donald Trump to be impeached. Just because you want something to come about doesn't mean it will, and that's wrong for the American people in the process. What we all want, I think, regardless of our ideology, is the truth. And I feel that the special counsel will get to the truth if we let him. And this is a diversion, and I just think it's wrong, and I don't like when people in my party do it. Adam Schiff said it's beyond premature to talk about impeachment at this point. I would agree with him.
Eric, is this a field day for the GOP?
Oh, yeah, the House approved.
Two Erics today.
It's an Eric.
Eric
We
C.
refer to him as the Eric, and I'm just Eric. The House approved $1.6 billion for the wall today, and if Congressman Sherman's not careful, we might extend it over to the California border.
We live in Cali.
Yeah, I know, and that's the reality. Is I'm a little disappointed being a California resident, and that this is our representation. And here's the deal. You can talk about his tweets, you can talk about reversing things on foreign policy, but I don't really think that either the media or the Democrats understand why Donald Trump was elected. He was not elected because of the rhetoric. He was elected because, again, he ran against a system of failure. He also talked about things that he was going to do that not only did the Democrats not see, but the Republicans didn't see in the primary. He talked about securing the border, and that wasn't being talked about. It was number 7 on the list. Donald Trump ran a different type of campaign, and I'm sorry that some of these congressmen need to catch up, but we'll take it for the 2018 midterms.
The Eric Bolling.
So what we talked about a couple of nights ago, it feels like these Democrats are so invested in we got to catch Trump with collusion story that they're so into it that they've spent so much time and so much effort, so much breathless accusations on television that every little nugget they continue to blow up. I spent the first part of my life after baseball as an investor, okay, at an investment company. And one of the first things you learn when you're in investing is it's not how much you make on a winning trade. It's how much you don't lose. You cut your losses when you're wrong. The Democrats have been wrong and wrong and wrong. We're on our 10th bombshell revelation, and none of them are panning out. I'm sure, you know what, fine. You're right. Let's wait and see what Mueller has to say. But again, when can we all put this aside when he's done?
Absolutely.
Or should we wait and see if we can have another?
Not if he recommends impeachment.
Oh, come on.
And you have a
Leslie,
Republican Congress that won't do it.
For what?
Yeah, we don't know.
At this point, we don't know.
They've leaked every single thing that this guy's life has been about over the last year. Wouldn't you think they'd leak the most damning thing in the world, which would be some evidence of collusion?
Because Eric, you think it's all about the president. It isn't just about the president. Remember, there are different people involved here. Now, Eboni's an attorney. She'll back me up on this one.
You can't impeach Donald Trump for
Donald Trump. You don't cut a deal and ask for
talking.
Immunity unless you're going to jail. And you have something on somebody to offer.
Okay, obviously, he does not think that he's going to actually be able to impeach the president. I think that what he wanted to do was do something where people would start to maybe know who the hell Brad Sherman is, because I never heard of him before, and now we're all talking about him. Must be kind of nice. I really don't know. And it is just like a lot of the things Eric brings up with the media, overblowing things as bombshell, bombshell, bombshell. This has the same negative impact of not taking it seriously. They're calling for impeaching him now. That just shows that their motivations aren't really in the correct place.
Well,
one thing I will disagree with is, okay, wait and see, and we keep saying, let's wait and see, but when do we allow unelected bureaucrats to really dictate? I mean, at the end of the day, we have, whether it's
you mean
Mueller,
the FBI?
well, and it's not just the FBI, well, they're not a separate branch of government.
No,
right?
but they're,
so,
well, they are appointed.
Again, they can make recommendations, they are appointed, but at the end of the day, you also have to look at, what those recommendations are, and if they don't go in terms of...
I think that's dangerous, Eric. I think if we start if we start undermining the authenticity of our intelligence agencies and our
We're not
bodies.
undermining, but they're not a separate branch of government.
The FBI is supposed to do the FBI's job, which is what it's doing.
Well, Senate Republicans unveiled their revamped health care bill. What will Mitch McConnell be able to do about it? Will he be able to marshal enough votes to get it passed? Stay with us.
Does it have the votes? That's the big question rocketing around Capitol Hill right now after Senate Republicans released their new health care bill today. Among the highlights, health insurers will be allowed to sell low-cost policies with limited coverage, and Obamacare taxes on the wealthy would be kept in place. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell pressing the case for its passage.
The American people deserve better than Obamacare. This is our opportunity to really make a difference on health care. This is our chance to bring about changes we've been talking about since Obamacare was forced on the American people. So it's time to rise to the occasion. The American people deserve better than the pain of Obamacare. They deserve better care. And the time to deliver that for them is next week.
However, Republican Senators Rand Paul and Senator Susan Collins already announcing their opposition to the bill, meaning Republicans cannot lose another vote from their side. Eric, gotta tell you, the fact that this is this big bailout bill is the conservative answer to health care makes me quite frankly sad.
So you get in arguments with the fellow conservatives who say anything's better than nothing, and I disagree vehemently. I think going into 2018 with this bill, which now the CBO has already told us that if you're 50 and older and at a low income level, you're going to pay more premium than in Obamacare. How in the world are you going to win 2018 House seats when one of your main voting blocks is going to be worse off than under Obamacare, and you've been complaining about it for 7 years? I hope they table it. I hope they put it aside. I don't think they will. But I don't think they have the votes. Rand said no. Susan Collins said no. And McCain all day was saying, it doesn't look like I'm going to vote for it either.
I don't know how Mitch McConnell actually gets out here, Kat, and says this with a straight face. I'll agree with him. America deserves better than the high Obamacare premiums. Agreed. The GOP has the opportunity to deliver on that promise. Agreed. And you know what? They are squandering it at every turn. And I think this is a sad, and really, I need a stronger word than sad, Leslie. I think it's irresponsible what the GOP is doing in this moment. I really
Completely
don't
agree.
healthcare.
If nothing else, we know definitively that this bill is not right for America because Eric Bolling and I agree and agree that it's not right for America. But all jokes aside, look, Lisa Murkowski's phones are ringing off the hook, and he's not going to have the votes. And one of the reasons is he's not addressing things that Republicans' constituents throughout Middle America
You're talking about Mitch McConnell,
are
right?
talking about.
You're not talking about Trump. Let's be clear.
No, I'm not talking about Trump.
Thank you.
Everything's about Trump.
No, but let's be clear. This is a Senate bill, not Trump bill.
No, absolutely. I'm not talking about the president. I'm talking about the Senate, specifically Senator McConnell. But the GOP's problem here is that one of the issues with Obamacare is the rise in cost of premiums. We see in the report after report and analysis after analysis, it doesn't address that. One. Two, their constituents are the middle and lower income Americans. By 2026, 26 million people will be off of Medicaid, but you got to go further out in the plan. 10 years later in 2036, and you're talking 35 million people total. A lot of these individuals are their constituents. And then asking older people to pay even more, this is worse than Obamacare. And let's remember that the implementation to undo something and to put something in place, especially if something in place is worse, it's not just a political nightmare. You're putting politics over people, and that is going to be a huge issue in the midterm election for Republicans if my fellow Democrats get off the couch and come out and vote.
Eric, this is a big bailout bill, and it's the conservative bill. That makes me very depressed that we've reached a place where are there conservatives anymore? If even the conservatives are saying, hey, let's do this.
Well, full disclosure, I used to work with Rand Paul, consider him a friend, and I think he's one of the most principled senators that there is. And there's $200 billion in new taxes here. And what Senator McConnell said is that, this is changing. Well, there's one thing that we can all unite on, is that's repealing Obamacare. And that's what Republicans ran on. I agree with Eric. It's something that we get done is something better than Obamacare. That's not what we ran on. It's not what
There's a
ran on.
really cool, interesting way to tackle this. You promise repeal and replace. Okay, we'll get to that. Republicans will get to that. Instead, in the meantime, you can keep Obamacare, just not make it mandatory, offer a GOP alternative, pick and choose which one you want, buy some time, get through 2018, continue to have the House and the Senate and the White House, and then put together a bill that really works for
That
us.
sounds completely reasonable to me. But what I don't think, and I'll get your feedback on this, Eric, is not okay to repeal it and not offer anything in its place. And I've heard that idea floated a lot recently, and I think that would be a disaster, not just politically, but as Leslie's talking about, in terms of actual American people and their health care.
The most politically expedient thing for the administration to have done would be to let Obamacare fail. Donald Trump has done his job. He's brought this to the table. Congress needs to act.
All right. Directly ahead, breaking news on a disturbing murder mystery in Pennsylvania as authorities uncover human remains on a farm in the search for 4 missing men. The latest next.
I'm not afraid to take a stand, take a stand. Everybody, come take my hand, come take my hand. We'll walk this road together through the storm, whatever weather, cold or warm. Let you know that you're not alone.
Welcome back to the Fox News Specialist. Some breaking news on a grim murder mystery in Pennsylvania. Fox News correspondent Rick Leventhal joins us from Solebury Township, Pennsylvania, now with the very latest. Rick.
Well, Eric, we know that there was one person of interest in this case, Cosmo DiNardo, a 20-year-old whose parents owned the farm where investigators have been searching for those 4 missing men all of this week. There were reporters gathered outside a courthouse here in Bucks County for a grand jury that was convening to consider charges against Cosmo, and we have just learned from one of our colleagues at Fox 29, this also now being reported by other news outlets, that Cosmo DiNardo has in fact confessed to all 4 murders of those 4 men who've been missing since last week. Cosmo DiNardo's attorney came out and spoke with some of those reporters and said that his client had confessed. And our colleague Chris O'Connell at Fox 29 is reporting that in exchange for the confession, Cosmo would not face the death penalty in this case. Just to bring our viewers back up to speed here, this investigation began when these men went missing, one on Wednesday and the rest on Friday. And investigators went to that farm on Sunday because of apparently a cell phone ping. And they brought cadaver dogs, and those dogs hit on a site there where they began digging, and were digging all week. And last night at midnight, authorities revealed that they had, in fact, found a mass grave on that property about a mile from where I'm standing, and they had positively identified 19-year-old Dean Finocchiaro as being one of the victims in that mass grave. The only question was whether the other 3 missing men, 19-year-old Jimmy Taro Patrick, 22-year-old Mark Sturgis, and 21-year-old Tom Mio, were also in that mass grave 12.5 feet below the ground. Investigators have been continuing to work at that site. Rain started falling here about an hour ago, making their job that much more difficult. But we've been waiting for an update from the district attorney in Bucks County, and we're now hearing from local media and also the DA's office retweeting some of those reports that, in fact, the only person of interest in this case, Cosmo DiNardo, has now confessed. And I guess the other question, Eric, would be whether anyone else helped him, not just to murder those 4 men, but also to bury them on his parents' property.
Hey, Rick, is there any indication that it looks like the demographic of these 4 victims? First of all, he confessed to the 4 victims that we're talking about. Let me ask you that. And then also, any indication of where he met them? They're all 19 to 23 young men. Where did he find these people?
Well, it's a good question, and that's a question we've been asking the DA and investigators all week. And they've been a bit elusive, saying they're still trying to piece together how all of these young men knew each other. We've heard a lot of rumors. We don't want to report on the rumors. We know that 2 of the 4 worked with each other, and reportedly, DiNardo was seen with one of those 4 men in his vehicle on Friday night. But the reason why they all came together and the reason why he may have killed all of them is something for the investigation to reveal.
Rick, 2 quick questions for you. First of all, with the suspect here, do we know about any prior criminal history? That's my first one to you, Rick.
Well, he was arrested on a weapons charge in February because he had mental issues and had been involuntarily committed and was not allowed to possess a weapon. A judge had dismissed that charge, but they recharged him earlier this week when they considered him a suspect in this case, and they put him in jail, and his dad bailed him out with a $100,000 cashier's check, 10% of the $1 million bail, but then they rearrested him on a stolen vehicle charge yesterday because they said he stole one of the vehicles belonging to one of the missing men, and then try to sell it 2 days later after the man went missing. So that's why he was locked up again on a $5 million cash bail. They didn't want him to get out, presumably because they knew he had something to do with these 4 murders.
And additionally, Rick, let me ask you this. I know you said that he confessed, his lawyer has said that publicly, but that's different from him actually pleading guilty because, as you said just now, maybe some mental health concerns. So we possibly could be looking at a not guilty by reason of insanity or something like that. That's still on the table.
Well, that would be a consideration, I guess. I'm not a lawyer, but I would say this, that if he's confessing in exchange for no death penalty in this case, then presumably they're drawing something up, and there won't be any need for a trial, and this thing could be adjudicated before that.
All right, Kat.
Yeah, Rick, is there any word at all on a motive, or we're not that far yet?
Well, it's a good question. It's what a lot of people are wondering, why he would do this. And again, we've heard rumors, but there's been nothing official about. He wasn't even named a suspect before today, just a person of interest. So really, there's nothing firm from the DA's office that we can report as to why he might be motivated to kill these 4 young men.
Very quickly, Rick, we got to go. But the car that he was attempting to sell, was that the car priorly owned by the one that they have confirmed, the same ID of the one confirmed ID?
No. The car they found belonged to a young man named Tom Mio, who was among the 4 missing. He went missing on Friday night, and apparently DiNardo tried to sell that car a couple days later.
I'm going to leave it right there, Rick. Thank you very much. Up next, if you thought San Francisco couldn't get any more politically correct or incorrect, you are sadly mistaken. The insane reason why transit officials are now censoring crime surveillance videos. Next.
In our What Is Even Happening segment, apparently crime surveillance video is no longer safe from the grip of political correctness. The public metro system in San Francisco has seen a series of brazen robberies in recent months where teen mobs swarm and attack innocent passengers to steal their valuables. Surveillance videos of the robberies exist, which of course could be used to get tips and help catch the criminals, but we can't show you. Transit officials are refusing to release them to the public. Why? Well, these teen mobs are reportedly made up primarily of minority youth. So transit officials say releasing the video would promote, quote, racially insensitive commentary and promote, quote, a racial bias in the riders.
Can you help me out here?
Also, no.
How did race get into this when it was because they were minorities or underage? Is it only about the race?
It's about
not age?
It's about the race. It's it could promote racially insensitive discussion, but they're still out there. And also, these are repeated attacks. People who are riding the subway, I would think, or the BART system could really use a look at that to maybe know how to protect themselves from something like that. I would think.
I think there's a lot of ways to combat a very systematic and oppressive dynamic that goes on against people of color in this country. That's not one of them. So just that simple.
And it creates additional problems, right?
The BART transit system, I mean, they have a $35 million deficit. Their time and management could be better spent. But it undercuts law enforcement officials. The ability to do their job to protect the citizens, the riders that want to ride that public transportation to and from, whatever area in the Northern California area. So, I wish we had better reinforcement of our law enforcement because this is something that really undermines their authority.
Is it, can I ask, Eboni, is it racially insensitive to name a suspect, a perp, who is fleeing a scene with a racial description? Is that insensitive?
No, not because if they're in active pursuit of them, that's important for public safety, right?
But
Now,
there are municipalities
but it's got to be consistent.
Who have frowned upon or actually told their police
not
don't
to
name the race of the suspect.
Well, again, I think now we're talking about a larger conversation where we as a society, I think, have been so irresponsible, right? When we talk about race and culture and color and things like this, this is an overreaction, that what you're describing, Eric, and that's horrible. But indeed, I think the consistency is the problem, where when you see the footage and the coverage and it looks like person of color after person of color after person of color, that's when those phobias start happening.
Well, first thing I thought of, like you had said, is it because of their age? Because if somebody said because they're juveniles, we're not putting this out there, that would have been a different thing. When they said it was because of it being racially insensitive, going further, apparently BART received, once people found out that these were minority use, there were just huge amounts of phone calls and emails that were extremely racist. Although I have to say, you know, as a liberal living in very diverse Southern California, having formerly lived in Northern California, the people can handle it. They want BART to be transparent. And remember that minorities are also victims of these crimes.
Yeah,
and we
right.
want to catch these individuals. One of the crimes was violent. One was stealing of a cell phone. But nonetheless, if you can protect. And by the way, the liberal San Franciscans out there have complained that BART as well.
And BART has a history with this. We're looking at Oscar Grant case, things of this nature, where they have been at fault and they have not been responsible. That's what I'm saying. I think they're trying to kind of make up for some bad behavior on their part.
Right.
Possibly.
All right. Well, we got one more here. Another absurd story playing out in San Francisco, this time in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Yesterday, it heard very real arguments in a very real lawsuit involving Naruto, a monkey who gained fame back in 2011. After Naruto took a photographer's camera and he took a selfie, the picture went viral. The photographer later included the selfie in a book. But the photographer is now being sued by an animal rights group for copyright protection on behalf of the monkey, arguing their photographer violated the monkey's rights. Eboni, I'm not a lawyer.
What is even happening?
I'm not a lawyer.
I'm going to say there's a standing issue.
I'm not even.
I'm going to say there's a standing issue on behalf of the monkey. Really, I don't think the monkey cares.
Okay, I can point something out. Now the Ninth Circuit is finally getting into something they're qualified for. Finally,
Saw that coming. Saw that coming.
Again, not an expert, but I just feel like probably no copyright for the monkey on the count of him being a monkey.
Well, even if you
That's brilliant. Legal analysis. No
the defense rests. Thanks, guys. He's a monkey. I don't. Does anyone disagree? Anyone on team this monkey or?
No, but you never know what the Ninth Court of Appeals is going to do. I did a press conference there one time, and they took under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, 80% of their, rulings are overturned at the Supreme Court level.
And we're talking about the big one, the temporary moratorium on travel, a la Donald Trump, and that's the same Ninth Circuit who decided incorrectly that it was unconstitutional.
The court, so far, everybody in the court has laughed. And by the way, can we give credence where credence is due and just props to the monkey? That's a heck of a selfie.
I was going to say.
From a monkey, he's got it focused and he's smiling. He looks great.
That's
you know,
a really good selfie.
It's not the owner of the monkey. That would be different if you say, hey, you didn't ask about, you messing with my monkey, you didn't ask if you can take a picture of my monkey. But we're such a litigious society. This is just, such a waste of courtrooms that are already clogged. And
it's so opportunistic too, right? Like you're saying, like you don't own the monkey. Like, are you trying to get in on this? That's what I'm saying. Like a real, and there's real, like I've seen cases where Humane Society or different organizations will come in to protect,
How was the monkey harmed when he took the picture of himself?
The monkey got some shine off of this. This is a win for the monkey.
So you think it's fair to pay monkeys an exposure, is what you're saying? We don't actually need to pay this monkey, but this keeps going on and on. I guess it matters to somebody, right?
You know what else keeps going on and on? This segment. But so good. This is what they should be occupying the time with. The monkey
instead of
the travel
band.
ban.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm in favor of that.
All right, cool. All right. When we return, we'll circle back with Leslie Marshall and Eric Beach. We're going to talk a lot more about the monkeys.
See, I've been waiting all day for you to call me baby. So let's get up, let's get on it. Don't you leave me broken hearted tonight. Come on, that's right. Honestly.
It's that time again to circle back with our specialists, Leslie Marshall and Eric Beach. Okay, Leslie. Now, I, too, spent some time tickling the, wait for it, ebony and ivories,
yes,
right? Okay,
yes.
Not probably as prolific as you. Who are your favorite composers? Classical piano?
I'm just old school, like Rachmaninoff and, Beethoven and Mozart and, that kind of stuff. Chopin, the masters that I started learning very young.
Awesome. Do you still play?
No.
Okay.
No, actually, a very quick story. I had a scholarship to a very prestigious, will not say, school to be a classical pianist. And I didn't go, and that was a disappointment to some of my musical side of my family. And I didn't play for a very long time. It was, I needed therapy to get over that. Yeah, so I don't play as much.
But eventually you returned to playing.
A little bit.
Okay.
Eric, you said you love indoor cycling.
Yep.
It's something I always try to make myself go to, but seem to have trouble. Do you have any tips?
Well, the only thing is marry a spin instructor. That's what I did. And so she will certainly make you go if you're married to a spin instructor.
So orders, direct orders.
Yeah, it's a directive. Yeah, there's no travel ban on me coming to the studio.
Just keep trying to catch her, right?
That's it. Yeah, it's very hard to do though.
I'm going to use my time to ask Eboni about your upcoming book. Tell us about it. Where can we get it? What's it
Bolling.
about?
Okay, so my upcoming book, Pretty Powerful, Appearance, Substance, and Success, right there. It's up on the full screen. Available at Amazon.com and BarnesandNobles.com. It's out September 12th. And it's been a real labor of love. I really put my heart and soul into this book, Eric, because kind of actually piggybacking off what Leslie's talking about. As a young girl, I grew up in kind of the pageant world, but I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer and took social justice and politics very seriously. And I had a hard time reconciling that, being both concerned with my appearance as a woman, but also my substance and the seriousness and the heaviness of the issues that I cared about. And so this book, and I interview some of our colleagues in it, Judge Janine Pirro, Monica Crowley, as well as Meghan McCain, Marsha Clark from the OJ trials in it. So I interview other women as well and tell my own story about reconciling those two really important parts, I think, of a woman's power ascent, her ascent to being powerful professionally and empowered.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Eric.
congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you to our Fox News specialists today, Leslie Marshall and Eric Beach. Thank you all at home for watching. Make sure you follow us on social media at Specialist FNC on both Twitter and Facebook. And remember, folks, 5 o'clock will never be the same. Stay with the special report up next.
President Trump in Paris considers inviting Vladimir Putin to the White House. Questions swirl over how and why a Russian lawyer was allowed into the U.S. to begin with and who she's associated with. And Republicans count heads as they drop another version of their Obamacare replacement. This is Special Report.